On today's episode of Locked On Avalanche, we give Martin Necas his season grade and why have the ratings for this cup final been down a little bit. Let's talk about that on a new episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of Locked On Avalanche. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for tuning in, making this your first listen of the day. It's always appreciated. Joining me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. He is back and better than ever. How are you feeling today, sir?
I'm alive.
That's all that you need to say. Anything that's after that, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. It does, but if you start the day after you had to take a day off from the show with "I'm alive," I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, that it was not looking like that yesterday. So,
well, happy you're back, and if you guys want to get in on this conversation and wish Shaggy a get well, join the subtext. Link is in the show notes below. You chat with Colin and I one-on-one. We get your opinion, everything Avalanche related, and well wishes to Mr. Von Doom. And share it on this very podcast. We'll do that here momentarily with the Necas grade. And we are going to, like I said, we're going to take a look at not only why the ratings for the Stanley Cup Final are down a little, what are some matchups that we would like to see in a Cup Final? One, because they would be a good matchup and would help viewership. So we'll get to that a little bit later. We typically don't start with season grades. It's usually in like segment 1 or segment 2 or segment 3. But I felt like this was one that let's start right off the top with this one because it should be an interesting conversation, a fun conversation. And I was really wondering where the vote would go because it seems like Necas, although he's only been here for a short amount of time, the roller coaster of emotion in following him. It seemed like the people who were like angry at how he performed in the postseason were just louder than everybody else. And would that affect the grade? I don't think it really did all that much. It kind of went where I thought it would go. They are who we thought they were. And so let's bring it up here. There you go. It's B's across the board, except for myself. I gave him a B+. I'll get to that momentarily, but it was pretty overwhelming, the Bs. C's were in there. There were some A's mixed in, but it was pretty solid B season for Necas. And I don't know if people were voting on this based on his entire season or just for the Avalanche. I kind of base it really just on the Avalanche. And you can do it any way you want to do it. This is free reign we have here. I kind of just focus in on the Avs part of it. Do I take the entire season into account? Sure, because you have to when you look at his numbers. But there's more to it than just that for Necas, which I'll get to in a minute. But I want to get your take.
Yeah, and I'm glad I stayed alive to have to go through this. This makes me just so happy. No, but I see that you're the lone positive here when it comes to a B+, and like my flat B is kind of down from where it started. My grade is also on Necas' time as just a member of the Avalanche, just because I don't even like to acknowledge that other organization.
Yeah,
but,
you don't.
but just the amount of take it back to when that trade happens. The emotions were everywhere, and you were wondering, how is he going to fare on this team? Is he going to fill the shoes of Mikko Rantanen? What is he going to do? And remember that moment of bliss, that 2 weeks that Nate and Necas were just two Lamborghinis on the ice. They were just everywhere. It was wonderful. And honestly, if he would have maintained that all year long and maybe just a glimmer of that into the playoffs, we'd be talking about maybe a flat A, just because of what was expected of him, who he was filling in for, and what he provided from the start. But he kind of tailed off, especially with different people coming back towards the end of the season. And then the playoffs was about what you were anticipating or were hearing, his major problem in his previous stop. So he has gone down to a flat B. He is not a liability. And that's I state this with every grade. You're not a liability. You're not making mistakes. Especially with an off season. Like, what will you look like with a full off season and start the year with this team?
Yep.
I'm optimistic about that. But you started off with so much promise, and it just kind of turned pedestrian towards the end.
Yeah, I'm with you on he was riding an A for a good chunk of time. And then it like kind of slowly just trickled down a little bit. I was with everybody else, including you, in just a flat B. But there's little nuances here and there for not for every player that we grade, but sometimes something like this happens where I look at it and I'm like, I'm going to give them a little bit of a bump, or maybe the opposite is true. Where like, I got to downgrade them just a little bit for that. And the reason why I went up, I gave Necas another half letter grade here, going to the B plus, is because of everything that surrounded that trade. And you are the guy that they brought in for the person who they traded for is just, was on the road to legendary status with the Colorado Avalanche, with Mikko Rantanen. So the bullseye is on your back when you are that guy. And maybe to a lesser extent, it's now Logan Stankoven in Carolina. You know what I mean? Like, so those guys who are brought in for the big name, it's difficult. It's tough to win over the fan base. It's tough to win over the locker room. It's tough to make those adjustments. And I thought he did a really good job in that regard. And I think, I'm not saying he won over the fan base, but I think the fan base is happy with him. I think the fan base will say like, okay, we saw glimpses of what you can do. We would, and we do need to see it on a consistent basis. And we will give you, I think it works out nicely for him to have this 1 year still with Colorado, because I think Avs fans are willing to give him that. And it's either, I hate to say it, it's like it's a make or break season for Martin Necas with the Colorado Avalanche and with the fan base, because who you replaced is almost irreplaceable, but he's got to come close. And that's a tall order, and that's a lot to put on a guy. But Necas has the skill and the talent to, I'm not saying be Mikko Rantanen, but be a huge part of this team. And he had his best year, numbers wise, 83 points, I think it was. That's a point per game. You were just under a point per game with the Avs with your 30 games played, 28 points. But, we know what Mikko Rantanen is. Mikko Rantanen is a point per player guy. You at least have to do that. So because of that, because of just everything surrounding the fanfare of that trade, and he was a part of it, how you handle it goes a long way in for me. And I thought he handled it very well. So I know the playoffs were what they were, but I'm giving him that extra half a grade because of just the trade junk that went on with this whole thing.
Yeah, and like you touch on it, like he came in here expected to replace or at least come close to that same production that Mikko had. And again, go back in time. Remember the graphics that were going up? Mikko Rantanen has this many points, but look at what Necas has. And Drury. Look at all the points of the pieces of this trade going on. And Necas was really playing well when he first got here. And like I said, he was deserving of that A. But then once he started quieting down, especially in the playoffs, Mikko started getting louder. And that almost, I think, hurt him a little bit more.
Very true.
And we're looking at it like, because we were saying number 96, Mikko, who like we won in this trade. And then at the end of the year, it just becomes pedestrian. Mikko has that incredible playoff run. And we're like, okay, this hurts. This stinks. And Mikko's the guy that puts you out of the playoffs.
Right.
So, yes, next year is going to be different. The storyline of that trade goes out the window, and you can evaluate exactly what he's going to give you. Is it the first half of the 30 games that he had that regular season where it was that stellar A+ performance? Or is it going to be more of this pedestrian still trying to find your spot? We'll find out, but I'm hoping it's more that A, because I feel like he could easily do that with that confidence and knowing, okay, this is my spot. I know where my highs and my lows are and what I have to do to contribute.
It needs to be the A, man. Like, because
Yep.
Mikko Rantanen was an A every year
Yep.
that we were doing grades for him. Like, so he needs to be that. And for the people shouting from the mountaintops of like, yeah, you can't produce in the playoffs, can't produce in the play. Like, I get that, but I'm not the type of guy that like will watch sports and a guy who struggles in the playoffs. I'm not the type of person to be like, that's who he is. He's always going to struggle for his entire career in the play. Like, if that was the case, like Peyton Manning wouldn't have won 2 Super Bowls, because for a long time that was the rub on Peyton Manning. Regular season quarterback can't do it in the playoffs. Number one, it's very difficult, and number two, guys overcome that stuff.
Yep.
At least try to. So, we can't sit here and just say like, oh, he doesn't produce in the playoffs, that's what he's going to do. Martin Necas isn't sitting there saying, I've been struggling in the playoffs, why try? He's not saying that stuff. So I always feel like, guy, like, even though it's a struggle and it's tough, I feel like, the more playoff rounds you get under your belt, the more seasoned you get, and you know what to expect more, and you can perform better. And I expect that from him, and I think he expects that from himself. So sure, get on him about his past performance in the playoffs, but I'm not one to just say that's how it's always going to be. And I've never really been that way.
Yeah, especially if you're wanting to trade players that struggle in the playoffs, you're going to be running real thin on Avalanche players right now.
Exactly. Jeez, come on.
The whole team struggled.
Right. So let's get our first break in here. I do have a couple subtext people that I want to get to. And then we'll get into our discussion on these playoff ratings, interesting as they are. So we'll do all that coming up next. Let's hear from FanDuel and the NBA Finals. They are in. They're happening right now. And what is it right now, Kyle? I think it's 3-2 Oklahoma City.
Okay, yeah, OKC.
Wasn't it 2-1? Were they down 2-1? I haven't been paying.
So
I think they were down 2-1. Yeah, and that so we could have both of these things. These two playoff finals wrapped up relatively soon here. But every night delivers highlight-worthy performances. Major momentum shifts and can't miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I don't know, if I was putting money on the NBA Finals, I think I would put that one player to have like over 20 free throws, because that's all I hear about is he's a flopper and he goes to the free throw line all the time. So if there's an over under for free throws, just bet the over.
Why not?
Yeah, come on now. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your bet, first $5 bet, and if that wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Couple subtext comments here. We got one from Joe. Says he gave him a B, but it's really a B minus. His regular season was absolutely fine. He was doing good, getting adjusted to the systems. Then he disappeared in the first round. That's unacceptable. And I almost gave him a C because of that. I think that's being, hey, I mean, you want to do it. You can weigh the playoffs more if you want to. Your prerogative. I think it would just be bad to give Necas a C on the season. He had one of his best seasons, the best season he's had ever. So I think that might be a little bit rough.
Yeah, I mean, because again, you're going to have to do that same kind of market. We're going to go back and change a lot of grades for a lot of Avalanche players, depending on that playoffs. Shorzy
says would be a B plus, but they can't vote pluses and minus, obviously. So he would have voted a B plus. Excited to see him for a full season. Also hope he can find his groove in the playoffs, because that's what we need from him. Yeah, that's short, simple, to the point, 100% right.
Yeah.
You know, he's like I said, maybe it's unfair, but he's got to be what Mikko gave you. So, yep.
Yeah, a full season's gonna a full season will benefit him with evening that out and finding his production.
Madam Battleaxe, have to give Necas an A-. There we go, Madam Battleaxe. He was great when we traded him for him, and I was very excited. Then he did disappear in the playoffs, so I was going to give him a B-. However, he gets a whole upgrade for the Back to the Future references. So I will take credit for that then. If she's going to give him a B-, and you know, I always put up the thing when he scores, the 88 miles an hour. So you're welcome, Martin Necas, for Madam Battleaxe giving you a full letter grade because Marty McFly. Love it.
Way to go, Captain. You saved him a whole letter grade.
I did. Grade him on a curve. He's yes. All right. So this final, it's you know, the first period as we're recording this just ended, and Florida is up 2-0. Did the second period start yet? I'm checking that right now. Yeah. So it's still 2-0. So if by the time you're listening to this, the series might be over, and the ratings for it are down a little bit compared to last year. And I was interested to see where this would go because it's the same matchup. You're getting a replay. You know, what's the word I'm looking for?
A repeat matchup.
A repeat. Thank you, sir. So, and the ratings last year were decent.
Yeah.
But this year they are down a little bit. This was so I'm pulling these from The Athletic, and they just said this article came out after game 5 where they didn't have the viewership from that, but I think you can guess as to where it is based on games 1 through 4. And this is in the United States. So game 1, 2.4 million, game 2, 2.5, game 3, 2.3, game 4, 2.6. So you are 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6. You're in that area, right? So I'm willing to bet game 5 was similar, and game 6, maybe because the team can win the Stanley Cup, it goes up a little bit more. We'll see. Compared to last year, game 1 was 3.12. Game 2 was 3.56. Game 3 was 3.4, and game 4 was 3.1. So nothing below 3 million on games 1 through 4 last year, and nothing above 2.6. That's your highest for this year. In Canada, it's getting play, which is not surprising that you have a Canadian team in the final. So they are going to tune in, and they are. The numbers are a little bit higher there. Overall, they have less people in Canada, but you know, that's their sport. And you know, like I said, Canadian team is in it. So they're tuning in. In the United States, it's dipped a little bit. The biggest reason to me, and it says it in this article too, and I 100% agree, this deal that the NHL has where they go back and forth between ESPN and TNT, the years it's on TNT, it's gonna dip a little bit because they don't have the, you know, that is cable. And when it's on ESPN, and if you listen to this podcast, like, you know, I'm not a fan of ESPN, but you can't deny the reach that they have, and they can put it up on ABC, which everybody gets. And that's the biggest difference, I think. But are there others? What's your take on this whole ratings thing right now?
Yeah, I think that's honestly the big one. It's because even going around, you don't see a lot of marketing for this Stanley Cup. Like, that's the thing that ESPN does have. It crawls over if you look for a score, you're going to be reminded when the Stanley Cup is. You're not going to get ESPN funneling you to a Turner network. They're not going to do that.
No. Right.
So when it comes to, is game 3 tonight? Is game 4 tonight? You're having to look it up, and you're going to have to go look it up. You're not going to get a banner ad. You're not going to get suggested. It's hard to find stuff for TNT. I get it. It's kind of rough because TNT has the better pregame crew, better announcing, better graphics. They handle the game so much better. They just don't have the reach because it is TNT. Like, it's kind of relegated to if it's not playing Impractical Jokers, I guess they have Stanley Cup. So like, that's just kind of how it goes. And I hate it for the sport. And I mean, it's fun, it's exciting, and I mean, to get at 2 point is still not bad for ratings wise,
It's
but
okay. Yeah.
it's not ideal,
Right.
especially for the Stanley Cup. And I'm pretty sure you would see those Canadian numbers if it was on ESPN. Take or leave the network.
You mentioned like how TNT, like you like their presentation better. I think most people probably would. You're seeing ESPN just getting railed right now for how they're handling the NBA finals. And it's more about a sideshow than it is like what's going on the court. They don't do that with hockey, but they try to Z it up a little bit more. And I think I agree with you. I think like, TNT handles it a little bit better than ESPN does. But doesn't this just show you that people don't care about that? Like they're tuning in to where they can find the games. They don't like, sure, you can watch the game and comment about the commentators and graphics and stuff like that. But in the end, people just want to watch the game. And if you make it difficult for them to watch, and I'm not saying TNT is difficult to find. People know that TNT exists. It's a very popular channel. This is just reach. And TNT doesn't have an ABC or CBS or an NBC to just throw these final games on like ESPN can do. And that's where this 25% dip is coming from. It's not like it's a drop off a cliff, but that makes up that difference easily.
It goes even a little bit further than that. You can't tell the NHL fan, if you want to watch your team every game all year long, buy ESPN Plus. You get to watch it on your app. You get to watch it wherever on the app. And then the playoffs roll around. Oh, you want to watch the Stanley Cup on TNT? Well, you could catch it live, or you have to buy HBO Max. Like signing them up for a different subscription service when you've conditioned them for 82 games all year long, just have ESPN Plus, which is probably something you already have. You already got it free. Pull it up. You're good to go. That's also a big sticking point, because if you do want to go pull it up on television, some people don't have TNT. And if you want to watch it, do you want to go sign up for HBO Max for maybe a month or two and watch the remaining games and then cancel it? That's also a difference.
But you're jumping through hoops to do all that stuff. And some people just don't want to be bothered to do that. Sign up, not sign up. Like they got to figure out a way to streamline it better, because the talk was Four Nations. Mm-hmm. When Four Nations was happening, that was the talk. Everybody was tuned into that. And the question was, could the NHL hold on to those viewers? Doesn't look like they have. It seems like it's just settled back into being what it is. And the hockey fans are finding it. And the casual fans, maybe you get a couple people here and there, but it hasn't held the Four Nations audience. And that, I think, is a disservice to how the NHL markets itself. Like they are still the NHL, like you have to make your product available daily to people in content. And my cable subscribers, YouTube TV. YouTube TV does not have the NHL network. Why not? Why not? It is the number one streaming cable service, and you are the fourth best of the four major sports out there. Like you are number 4. You are comfortably in number 4. And maybe there's people who argue that there's other sports catching you. I don't really necessarily believe that in the United States anyway. But you need to be on stuff like that. You need to put at least the NHL network so people can tune in 24 hours a day whenever they want to on every single streaming platform that there is. And why you're not on those, I continue to be baffled by. Makes zero sense to me. That's where people would have, so people who have YouTube TV, they're watching the Four Nations. And when that's over, they don't have just a network like the NFL network, Major League Baseball to tune into on at least YouTube TV. And I know they're not on other ones too. That stuff needs to get corrected, because that's just additional stuff that people can tune in and watch highlights and just get, acclimated with the game and just information and stuff like that. And there's millions of people that don't get that.
And you're wasting money as a league. If you have a network that people can't watch, you're just funneling resources into a network that's just basically for a select few. You're pouring money into something that you're not even reaching the limits that it needs to. So it's a disservice to the hockey fans and to the network itself and the league.
Like, what are you holding out for YouTube TV? Like, what? This is, is this a Comcast altitude like thing? Like, don't stop. Just stop doing that. Give them the product, not for free, but you know what I mean? Like, it should not be that difficult to come to an agreement to put the NHL Network up on something like YouTube TV right now. It's crazy. It's crazy. So, what are some matchups that could be draws for the casual fan? You don't need to anything that goes on. I'll watch it. You'll watch it. A lot of people listening to this podcast will watch it. But what is a matchup that could be a home run for the league when it comes to the Stanley Cup Final? Let's talk about that next. All right, so let me double check the score while we're doing it. Still 2-0. Coming winding down to the second. So, they just scored as I'm saying at 3-0 now. So it looks like you might have, unless you have a collapse, which could happen. You never know. Florida might be going back to back here. So
good. The Avs are built for taking down back to backs.
That is true. Hey, now. And
Florida teams going back to
Florida back to backs. Yeah,
it's all part of the plan.
So, like we were saying, so what is because casual fans tune into one of two things: the superstars or markets. And for this one, you're getting good hockey in this series. You're getting overtime games. You're getting a lot of scoring, which casual fans want to see. They don't want to see the 1-0 shutout. You have superstars. Like, everything is there in this series, maybe save for the markets. Edmonton's a Canadian team. Maybe that's a little bit of a draw. But you're not getting like the major, you don't have a major market team in the Stanley Cup Final. And maybe they take a little bit of hit for that. Having said that, what is a matchup that you think, if that was the Cup Final, that's a home run, that's a slam dunk, people are going to be tuning into it?
I have two. One that includes the Avs, and another that has a healthy television market. The Florida Panthers would be one of the teams versus the Los Angeles Kings.
I put that, so I didn't, I couldn't come up with like matchups. So I came up with like just teams, and you can mix and match whatever you want to do with them, East and West. I had the Kings down.
Yeah.
I think the Kings would, it's LA, right? LA draws. So yes, I had the Kings. So for next year, hey, if Florida's going for a three-peat, that's a draw. Come on now. That's definitely that could be a good one.
And I think that would do gangbusters. I think it would be like LA from out of nowhere. It's been a while since they've been relevant in the Stanley Cup picture, trying to destroy the three-peat. Like, I think that would be a good story and really entertaining. And they got a good team, fun to watch. I think that would do really well. The other one, this one does include the Avs, but it's so easy to market. And this will make you happy too. Colorado Avalanche versus Toronto Maple Leafs.
Maple Leafs all day.
Yeah.
If the Maple Leafs can get in, that's home run city, right? That's grand slam.
But like having those two teams go against each other, it's what you're trying to pitch hockey fans on this Stanley Cup Final. Like, you have a wonderful team versus the best in the game. Like, you have all this, the casual hockey fan and the hardcore hockey fan, they understand this. But if you are talking to NBA fan who's burnt out on the finals, MLB fan who just watched your player get traded to the Giants, like, if you want something to look, you see the Avalanche versus the Lightning, Austin Matthews, Nate McKinnon, flashy speed, cool, like history.
Yeah.
Putting that on my television, sign me up.
I think if Toronto gets in, it wouldn't matter who the other team is that they're playing. If it is like something like the Avalanche, that's a great matchup. And yeah, like, you're marketing just superstar after superstar after superstar. So that would definitely draw. I think that'd be a really good. That's what you need. You got to have at least one of the teams in with some sort of story going in, and some sort of history. And I know that can't happen every year, but what we're talking about, what draws attention, what draws in the casual viewer, that would draw people in Toronto, no doubt. Outside of like your major market, like LA, yes. Rangers get in. Yes, that's a big one. Although it's funny that you say that, and like if the Islanders get in, I would feel like maybe not so much. It's got to be the Rangers because it's like that the history with that team. But oddly enough, like just quickly, the other side of it, like if a team like Montreal got in right now, I like in Canada that'd be massive. I wonder because like there's not a lot of star power on that team right now. You have the name recognition being the Montreal Canadiens, but like behind that I'm just saying as a team is constructed right now. And as a team is constructed right now, can they make a Stanley Cup final? I doubt it. So they might have to bring in some bigger name players to make that final. But basically what I'm trying to say is like just being an original six team does not guarantee you massive ratings. And I think the way that Montreal is constructed right now is a little bit weird. So
they were in the COVID Cup not too long ago.
That was COVID, and that was you know what? It's funny you say that because this just going back to this viewership thing quickly. Game 1 of this series was the least watched Cup final opener since the COVID Canadiens Lightning final, which in 2021, which only drew 1 million or 1.61 million. And that's when we had nothing to do when we're sitting home watching television. So my point there, like, yeah, that was a weird one, the way that divisions were and everything, that was odd. But having said that, as I'm saying, like being an original six team, like doesn't guarantee you. Yeah, it helps for sure. I think there's some Avalanche fans that are not going to be happy with me saying this. If the Detroit Red Wings can make a Stanley Cup final, that will bring in viewers, especially like
against the Avs. That's
against the Avs. That would just that
would be television history,
huge. But just them getting so for Toronto, it's different just because they haven't won one since 57 or something like that. But they've made the playoffs and they've lost in the playoffs. Detroit's struggling just to make the playoffs right now. And they've just been on this just downturn, and you think they're going up and then they just crash again. Them getting back there would be very good for the league and very good ratings for if the Red Wings can get into the Cup final. It would. I know you hate to admit that, but it would.
I would rather. Hey, I said Toronto could go to the Cup just for you. Don't spin this around and make me say, Detroit would be a great idea. No, I will never.
I know you don't like it, but it's what's
we'll
best
go until lockout. We'll go until lockout.
A couple people around subtext. Vargar said Montreal, Chicago. Chicago would be a good one for kind of the same reasons as Detroit, just because they've just been
Vargar. That sounds like a Stadium Series game.
That would be if you have both teams that are original six, yes, all day long, that's a home run. And then Chicago, obviously with the Bedard stuff. And then he puts the Rangers in Colorado.
Ooh,
could be
the
interesting.
Air Force One Cup.
Could be interesting, yeah. And Toronto, Dallas, he puts in there too, which that would be a good one.
That's like classic bubble hockey, like the colors that you would have in a bubble hockey game.
Yeah,
like that blue and green.
Brandon has Toronto and Vegas.
Yikes.
And the Kings and the Rangers.
That one would be fun.
Which we got that. That was what? I don't know.
93,
15 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember the exact year. It was like 2010,
2012.
I don't know, something around there. Yeah, but that was recent.
Yeah, 2013, 2012,
around there. Yep. And then Adam says he had Toronto and Dallas in this year's bracket, so he's going to go with that. I think that probably wouldn't have drawn decent viewership. No, you're the second one to say Toronto and Dallas. So you get, like I said, you get Toronto in, and that's good. And you get Dallas in, like they were a good team. Dallas was a good team this year. That I think that would have drawn, and that's a good market,
good atmospheres.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we'll see. see where these things go. But I think they're in the second intermission now. So we're going to wrap this up so we can go watch maybe the Stanley Cup get passed around. And no matter who wins this thing, it's always fun to watch that happen. So we're going to wrap this thing up. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new episode of anything going on in Avalanche Nation. So be sure to tune into that one. But for this one, thank you for making it your first listen of the day. Always appreciated. He's Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And we'll see you tomorrow where you have made it through another 24 hours where Sidney Crosby is that much closer to being with the Colorado Avalanche.
No.